Anderson Cooper, AC 360, CNN weeknights 10 Eastern.
Ed, a Coast Guard official says the oil is in its final life cycle, though they aren't finding much oil on the surface, they say. Does this mean that it's gone? I mean, has Mother Nature and the dispersants just broken it up already?
Well, to a large extent. Remember, the spill stopped about 10 days ago, and the Gulf was really acclimated to taking 60,000 barrels a day. So all of a sudden you have none, the bacteria there, and they are degrading, very rapidly degrading what's left. So the amount of oil floating around in the Gulf is going down significantly. That doesn't mean that we're out of the woods. Oil will still be coming ashore for several more weeks, maybe several more months, but it is being degraded fairly quickly, as is seen by overflights.
So, Ed, if it means it's not on the surface, I mean, is there still all that oil in the water column that just diffused?
Well, I suspect that a lot of this oil is floating near the surface, but right under the water column. The oil that's easy to see that forms the sheen, that's been degraded. So the sheenable oil is gone, and what you've got is globs of oil floating near the surface, just under the surface. Hard to see from the air, but it's still there. The tropical weather, I think, broke these globs of oil into much smaller droplets, and the smaller the droplets, the easier it is for the bacteria to degrade it. So we're clearly on the downhill slope on this thing. We're not at the end yet, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think.
Craig, are you worried? Are you skeptical that the threat has diminished? I mean, are you worried that they're going to start pulling out equipment?
That's exactly what we're seeing now, Anderson. The real concern is that when you hear the description and the depiction of how much oil is really left, we've become somewhat desensitized, really. Think about if any amount of oil was discovered without this spill incident being part of it. There would be a response immediately to an environmental hazard. But for some reason, because the numbers are much higher and now the well is capped, and by the way, we are very happy about that. We're ecstatic that the well is no longer leaking. But we cannot turn our eyes away from what's in the water. We're finding new oil every day, whether the Coast Guard sees it, whether BP sees it, or anyone else. We go by what we experience every single day. We're having new oil impact on our marshlands, on our islands, and certainly within our skimming vessels.
Ed, at this point, do we know the impact? I mean, can we judge this with some perspective now, the impact this has had, will have on animal life, fish life, marine life, on the oyster beds? I mean, do we know what's happening underneath the water?
Well, we know that the oil is going away. Now, it's still there, as Craig pointed out, and it's still going to be coming ashore for a while, but the frequency, the quantity will start falling off fairly dramatically. Now, we sure don't need to move the skimmers. We need to be prepared to get it off, because that's where the damage occurs, when it gets on shore. It's hard to tell what the damage is offshore. There's been any number of estimates. Of course, we can see the porpoises that are dead. The turtles have been counted. The birds, all of these things, but those kills will start dropping off fairly dramatically in the near future. The unseen damage is what will be hard to quantitate, and we don't know, and we may not know for a couple of years just how much damage is done to the total ecosystem.
So, Ed, I have no doubt that some then are going to hear, well, okay, they had 800 skimmers out and we're only able to collect 1 barrel of oil yesterday. Some folks are going to say, well, look, this thing has been overblown. Has it been? I mean, was this as bad as scientists said it was, or going to be early on?
Well, oil spills are acute events. That means that they're just horrible when they are occurring. But their long-term prognosis is a lot better than a lot of people have said. I mean, the past experience with Exxon and Exxon Valdez and all the other spills around the world show that it's a horrible acute event, and you've avidly demonstrated how ugly an oil spill is. But the long-term prognosis is not nearly as bad as some people have said. I think we'll be pretty much back to normal in 2 to 3 years. There will be some environmental indicators that won't come back for some time, but most, 90%, 90+%, will return to normal fairly quickly. And I think next summer we'll have a hard time finding a lot of this oil. We'll still not the oyster beds, maybe some of the shrimp will not be back to normal, but in general, our environment will recover. It's amazing how resilient the environment is.